All opinions expressed on any program are those of the producer and or persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of DCTV. All producers and guests appearing on programs provide information and opinions based on information they consider to be reliable. DCTV does not affirm the completeness and accuracy. All DCTV members agree to adhere to DCTV's statement of compliance and are participants in a community medium forum where they're exercising their freedom of speech.
Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis. This show is a series that has been coming to you from DCTV since 2015 in a weekly program called the Network of Global Corporate Control. Today's program is live and is called That's When I Blew the Whistle. Thank you to DCTV and to Carmen Stanley, Project Director, to Maurice Jackson, Studio Director, and to Crochet Starnes on audio and teleprompter. I blew the whistle on the entire financial system and not just the president of the World Bank. Alexandra said the journey to truth is easy if you can hear it. Thank you so much, Ms. Hudis. You're looking very well. The true climatologists are attempting to warn us of this truth. However, the media, academia, and government, which are controlled by the Phoenicians, are pushing the opposite narrative. Your tireless efforts are very much appreciated. And the truth seer said, "Great post, Karen. Always love to see your posts." And then there's a post about where the people's gold is. Like a surfer, I have to wait for the wave to catch it. The wave is people demanding their gold. Where is the people's gold? It's right where Jose Rizal deposited it in the global debt facility. Royalty and other rich people used to own the world's gold. In between World War I and World War II, they gave their gold away in exchange for bonds that carried interest. The interest kept compounding until the Fed owed more than $2 quadrillion. Twitter deleted this tweet, and YouTube also deleted it. The attempt to censor me backfires by calling attention to what the cabal is trying to hide. Divide and conquer actually helps people understand that we are all in this together. Now I'm going to speak extemporaneously about Zionism. And this is due to a question that was posted on YouTube. And I'm going to read the question, actually. Thank you so much, Karen, for addressing this information on this grand solar minimum that so many have no idea about. I doubt if the majority in the U.S. will ever wake up because they simply don't give a hoot. They simply can't take their blind eyes away from their cell phones, etc. Perhaps you might want to inform your viewers about the Smith-Mundt Act that was overturned by Obama, allowing the United States government to shove propaganda down our throats, or our government legally can lie to us. I'm happy to hear that many others are finally waking up to the truth, but we need to tell the majority and have them on board if America survives. The horrors soon to come. We need a revolution, but the powers that be want a civil war so we can kill each other off instead of doing it. It's my opinion the biggest threat to all of humanity is Zionist Israel, the Chabad, and their evil plan to bring forth their false Messiah. We all know they're building their third temple. What's your professional opinion on Trump? Unless he's keeping his enemies close, we just might have some hope. But if he's a Zionist, America is finished. How can we trust Trump when, in fact, his image is on the new temple half shekel, and his son-in-law, well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out he's no friend to the citizens of the United States, but his loyalty stands with evil Israel. Please, what's your opinion? Again, thank you so very much for all you do for humanity. Love and light. Now, this was in the question and answers and the comments on the latest video on YouTube. And when I answered it, it was censored. And so I'm going to go into that. That's what the main subject of this video is going to be. It's all wrong. It's all on its head. And the question, obviously this person is not very well informed. She's chastising people for being wrong, but she's absolutely 180 degrees wrong herself. What's wrong about it? Well, Zionism is not the problem. I know that that's what people think it is. There are a lot of people that think that, but it's not the case. And so we're going to deconstruct this. I also put a tweet up this morning which showed you some of the lies that and twisted things that people are thinking. Zionism is really it's a fight between the Palestinians and the people who thought that they had the sacred right to the land in Israel. And this fight over the real estate, this has come through the centuries. But actually, there's a lot going on with this fight. The Judaism, for one, is this religion predates our history, our civilization. So obviously there's something more going on. What predates it? How do I know this? Well, that's a very good question. And one of the ways to find out what the true history is to look for it and not to be gullible. There's a project at Moscow State University which the mathematicians have been looking at what is history. And the way they do that is they look at the astronomy and they see when we've had eclipses, and they can date things that way. And you see in one of the things that I recently tweeted, you can see what happened to Mount Vesuvius and the volcano there. If you actually accurately date when Mount Vesuvius blew, it's not the year that you thought. The Jesuits have lied to us about our history. And there's a very good Russian, he died, his name is Petrov, and he died, I believe it was in, well, I forget which year it was, but his friends all thought that he was murdered. And he got it right. He knew what was actually going on. And what has to happen is people have got to work together. It's not straightforward. We have to do something called critical thinking. I was called to task because people were saying that there's no way to tell whether I'm telling the truth or not. It's my word against everyone else. But the point that I made is that if you look at a consistent storyline over a long period of time, it's very difficult to fake these things. It really is. Now, let's get back to the story of Zionism. There's a man, a journalist in Canada, Barry Camish, who was murdered by the Mossad. He was murdered the day after I had spoken to somebody that was a member of the Mossad. And Barry Kamish was a very clever man who was not going to jump to conclusions. And so one of the things that he found out was the children in Yemen who were migrated to Israel during the 50s. They were exported. They were put in cages, and they were experimented on because the people in the United States had very little experience with radiation, and they ran very gruesome experiments. Some of these Yemeni babies were adopted, but most of them were shipped to the United States, and in exchange for going to the United States to be experimented on to see what happened with radiation, that Barry Kamish broke this story. It's not a story to be proud of. The only thing to be proud of is to realize that we're trying to put the puzzle pieces together and understand some of these things that we've been told that don't really make very, very good sense. The stories are just astounding, actually. Barry Kamish, he wrote his master's thesis on some of the contradictions in the Israeli society. If you try to understand what actually happened, it's not something that that you usually hear. So, for example, the bomb in Hiroshima was not built by the United States. It was built by Germany. They used Auschwitz to enrich the what is it? I'm sorry, words fail me. But yeah, the bomb was constructed by the Germans, and the detonation device was caught on the U-2 boat in Germany. That's how Hiroshima was. That's how the bomb was created. And this business about 6 million Jews being killed in World War II, the death camps were not actually death camps. They were uranium enrichment plants, and the gas machinery that was put in place by the Russians to lie to everybody. So what happened in World War II was the people that claimed that they won the war actually didn't win the war. But the bankers wanted to tell people lies, and we have not been very good in following through. So one of the other interesting things was that Hitler had a Jewish psychic. So there are all kinds of unexplained things. Hitler was actually he was trying to win the war, obviously, but he was not the universal villain that people like to paint him as. He was a scapegoat. This is you have to get back and understand what history is. History is told by the victors. That's not what real history is. And the Jesuits have falsified history. The dates are wrong. The personalities in history is wrong. Greece was actually in the Middle Ages. So now, this sounds preposterous, but what has to happen is that people have got to dispassionately put some of the puzzle pieces together. And it's not really my job to be the final authority. I couldn't possibly presume to be that. All that I can presume to be is somebody who understands that we've been lied to, and that we need to just stop taking all of these lies at face value, because as you understand, the banking cartel, the publishers, they're the ones that are telling the stories. That doesn't give them a corner on truth. And when you get down to what's going on with the climate cycles, this is something that is going to impact us very soon if we don't get ourselves prepared for the cooling periods that come with regularity. We're not going to have enough food. And in addition to the climate problem, we've got the poisoning of our oceans through Fukushima. And I've told you before that Fukushima was not caused by a tsunami. It was caused by guns, nuclear guns that were used to sabotage the power plant in Japan deliberately to poison our food source. Now, this is something that we've got to get to the bottom of. How are we going to do this? There seems to be an understanding now that the stories that we're told don't hang together very well, like 9/11, what happened when the Twin Towers went down. That just makes absolutely no sense. So we need to go back and figure out what actually did happen. And the question that I was reading from was talking about Donald Trump. And what I have been telling you all along is that Donald Trump is not the real president of the United States, because we do not have a constitution in effect, and the Electoral College didn't elect him. And actually, all of the politicians they're just play actors. The constitutions of the countries have been replaced by companies. So you've got to get used to the fact that you've been bamboozled, and the reality is very, very different from from what you've been told. Now, where to begin? It's this problem of not knowing what's true from false. It's very difficult because the lies have been going on for so many thousands of years, thousands and thousands of years. So, and people are not used to admitting. They don't like to admit that they've been bamboozled. And certainly not when so many of them share this this story, which is wrong. How are we going to pivot? That's the best way to describe it. How are we going to pivot? And it can't just be up to me, obviously. It's got to be something that we all do. And I've been working on this problem for many, many years. And all that you can see is that there is a consistent storyline. Not that I've got a corner on the truth, but there are enough people who have put the puzzle pieces together in a way that does make sense. One of the things that I haven't spoken to you about is the way that I'm publicizing this information. There's something in the cloud called Amazon Web Service, and there are links that are broken all the time. One of the people that wrote me on my website said that actually the reason that Amazon Web Service is breaking all these links is that they're connected to the Department of Health Services. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but I do know that when I go back to try to explain things, many times the things that I've written have been erased, as this comment in YouTube that was taken down on the 2nd of October. It was just about the first or second comment that went up last week. And so when you censor something like this, that doesn't really work, because it just piques the curiosity of people who want to find out and get to the bottom of what's going on. So there's enough people now. We've called it critical mass. There's enough people that realize that they've been lied to, and that reality is different than they've been told. And there are very important consequences when you reach critical mass. It turns out that when a lot of people believe something, this becomes manifest. And we've learned this through an experiment in Japan where a number of monkeys were washing sweet potatoes, and after enough monkeys washed sweet potatoes, all of a sudden, it wasn't just on one particular island that the monkeys were washing sweet potatoes, but it went to many other islands. And from this experiment, we realized that how did the monkeys manage to realize in islands that they should be washing sweet potatoes? There's something called the collective unconscious. When enough people know something, when a critical mass knows something, it's shared knowledge, and it leaps over boundary lines. So we now have enough shared knowledge that there's no way that the bankers are going to succeed in convincing us that reality is the way they're telling it. They have lost the narrative. And this is a very significant thing. What are we going to do now that we know that we have reached critical mass? We actually found this out a number of years ago, probably in 2016. It was healers who saw that what they said was the energies are chaotic. And so that meant that we're now in a different kind of reality. It's just the very beginning phase. And some people get very disappointed because they think that there should be a lot of immediate consequences. But that's not happening, obviously. We're taking it one step at a time, but it is irreversible. And we are going to ultimately fashion a world which is very different from the bankers' world. How do I know this? It's also because we are interconnected. And right now, I'm part of that group that's interconnected. We're all interconnected. Even the Cabal is interconnected. And so they can't escape the fact that reality is they're living in reality as well as we are. And so they can't escape that. And because enough of us understand what reality is, we're going to be seizing the narrative. And what we're ultimately going to do is we're going to get rid of a lot of the corruption in the world's money. And the world's money is just so corrupt. We've been talking about this ad nauseum, but the way that people understand how the money is corrupt, it's paper money is not real money. Real money is gold or precious metals, and it's been that way for thousands and thousands of years. So what happened in between World War I and World War II was the elites forgot that real money is actually precious metals. And so what they did was they gave away the real money, and they exchanged them for bonds that carried interest. And so what I did was I took the bonds and the paperwork for that, I put that in something called, I used that to record against the Fed. So the Federal Reserve now owes us $2 quadrillion, which is a mind-boggling sum. But as a result, there's no such thing as country debt, because country debt is much less than the $2 quadrillion that the Federal Reserve owes us. And they can't do anything about it. So we now have the right to wind down the banking cartel. And it's going to happen, but it's not going to happen very quickly, because you can imagine there's a lot of paperwork involved. There are some countries that have signed agreements, or they haven't signed agreements. I've sent them copies of the agreements, and we have to negotiate them. This is all going to happen. Now, I'm in the center of this, and the reason I'm in the center of this is because somebody has to do it. And I was in the World Bank legal department, and I was willing to do it. And so that's what I've been doing, and I've been doing it consistently. And there are real consequences for this. When are we going to succeed in implementing this? I don't know, but I do know that it is irreversible. And the reason why it's irreversible is because we have critical mass. Now, one of the things that happened was I didn't write an ending, an outro. The reason I didn't is because I've been very, very disorganized. Some of you realize that I've been having serious health problems. My heart is not beating regularly. I have a scheduled appointment with my cardiologist, and he's hoping that he can shock my heart back into the regular rhythm. But in the meantime, it's really not that important that I be in charge, because I'm not in charge. It's all of the people on this planet who are in charge. We're all responsible. I guess, let me know. Give me some guidance. Shall I wind down? Well, I want to thank you for listening to another segment of the Network of Global Corporate Control. And we're going to be in touch with you as we go forward. We're all working on this problem together.